Hello, everybody, and good morning. I'm your host, Keenan. Welcome to the June 2nd, 2022 weekly DXdao Community Call. Apologies in advance. I've been under the weather this week. I might sound a little bit sick today. For those of you not aware, last week we had our community call on Twitter for the first time, which was recorded, of course, and on our YouTube channel now. It was a resounding success as well, I must say. Went really well. Going forward until the launch of Operation Decentralization, we're going to be alternating between Discord and Twitter Spaces. More on that in a bit later. I have a bit of a DX Voice recap, a couple topics to chat about. So, of course, next week we'll be seeing you on Twitter once again. Today, specifically, we'll be chatting about the buyback, an update on DXD Trading Volume, the continuation of CAR rewards on Swapr, and much more. But quickly, before we get into the agenda, I want to call attention to the Events tab in Discord. Those of you that don't know, you can always find the upcoming community call on the Events tab at the top of the server. You can find it under the banner, the DXdao banner. If you opt into the event, you get a ping before it starts, which is, of course, nice if you're planning on attending. And going forward, we're going to try experimenting with other public calls and other events, whenever a DXdao contributor is speaking at an event, etc. So keep an eye on that tab. We'll have lots of info there, of course. Without any further ado, let's hop into the agenda today. Kicking us off, we'll start with some recaps, starting with governance. Lots of overlap between Chris and Dave today on the recap side. So whichever you feel most comfortable at each of the topics, feel free to take the reins, but starting with governance today.
Sure. I was actually thinking of, and the next topic was on the DXD Trade Volume too. So I guess maybe I can take those and then pass it over to Dave. Maybe we could give some updates on the interesting Treasury post that was just in the forum yesterday. So governance over the last 2 weeks, continuing normal operations. We had a bunch of bigger proposals a couple weeks ago in terms of the buyback extension. We had another Swapr ENS update. I think this is beta version 12, which we're going to have Adam talk about in a little bit there. There's also been some discussion, I think two fun ones. One started last week on this call from Quintillion about, the role of rep and how that can be used to make sure that DXdao continues to be decentralized. And then more on the kind of contributor front, there's been a little bit more pickup in terms of DXD compensation. And so not necessarily any change in the actual amounts of DXD, but since DXD is issued to contributors with a vesting amount, so it's starting before 2021 and before it was a 2-year vest with a 1-year cliff, which means half of the DXD can be claimed after 1 year. And since the vesting system hasn't been set up right now, this is done manually. And so we've had some contributors that have been requesting their DXD, and we've been kind of going through that process there. And that it's also kind of in line with some of the other housekeeping things we're doing in governance, kind of right around here. Similarly, looking at rep syncs, so reputation across the bases. I mean, most of the activity has been happening on Gnosis Chain for the last year or so, but mainnet really has the most assets and has a lot. So we need to make sure that people that are earning mainnet rep are syncing that back on mainnet when they're doing that. And so we have some people that have done that. We have a guide in the forum on that. And then the other spring cleaning thing we've been doing is looking at some of the old schemes that are registered with DXdao. And so the way that DXdao governance works is there are proposals go through different schemes that control different things. So there's the funding and contribution reward scheme, which is where the vast majority of proposals go through. But there's also an ENS scheme, which allows all of the ENS update proposals and that's actually just on mainnet. And then on Gnosis Chain and mainnet, there is a multi-call scheme, which actually allows DXdao to make calls to different contracts. And then there are a bunch of other schemes that have been used in the past, some that have never been used. And so Gusto went through kind of looking at the schemes that we use and don't use, and then has actually just submitted some proposal to deregister some schemes from Gnosis Chain as part of a spring cleaning. No real big change to it, but from like a kind of security organizational standpoint, it's always good to close any loose ends, especially if it's not being used there. So that's kind of governance there. And then just briefly on the DXD Trade volume, there's a post, the bi-weekly, which is a little bit more like tri-weekly, but was on June 1st there. A continuation of the trend from the prior, which is the decline in DXD trade volume. I think this is kind of coming from two sources. One, of course, is just the overall market slowdown. People look at prices, but when markets pull back like this, overall volume and liquidity really drops for everyone. So I think DXD's decrease in volume is in line with that. And the second is there was some liquidity, a good chunk of liquidity removed from on-chain sources over the last, say, month or two. There was a chunk in the balancer pool. There was an 80-20 that left, and then also some deposits on Swapr on Gnosis Chain, and I believe Arbitrum that had kind of decreased. So that's affected some of the overall volume there. And yeah, there's some things we've kind of talked about this before, but I think it may actually open up the conversation to Dave for like an interesting proposal, or I guess a draft proposal that was put into the forum, I believe, yesterday, and it kind of relates a little bit to DXD liquidity.
Sure, happy to take the mic over from you. So for those of you who might have already been on the forum, the post Chris is referencing, I also just posted it in the Mothership text chat, is the DXdao proposal to delegate treasury management to Karpatkey DAO. So I think something we've been kind of exploring and working on over the past year is putting the DXdao fund. I think Lofi, don't we put Lofi down at some point?
We keep Lo-Fi running. You have to adjust it manually, though.
Okay, I'll mute it, yeah. It was slightly distracting, but over the past year, we've been trying to kind of put more treasury assets to yield. And, given the nature of how we wanted to do it, it's always kind of challenging to do it in a fully decentralized way. That's why so far we really only did some staked ETH. We recently actually passed the proposal to increase our staked ETH position, and this proposal is kind of to delegate a small part of the treasury to Karpatkey. So for those who are not aware, Karpatkey is like they're also positioning themselves as a treasury management DAO, and they currently do all the treasury management for Gnosis DAO. And the idea here really is to kind of get an understanding of what kind of yields we can get with our treasury. So they are very agile, I would say. So they do like multiple proposals a day, moving positions, exiting positions, and entering new ones, which is something, of course, we're not able to do currently through our governance process. And the post really lies out like a 6-month trial period, for which we would be using a multi-sig to do these. So this is typically like a 2 out of 6 multi-sig, something along those lines, where Karpatkey owns 2 of the keys and the rest are all DXdao members. So given that it's 3 signatures, DXdao is always able to exit that position. But the main goal is really to see what kind of positions they enter for DXdao. So they always tailor the strategy, of course, to the assets of their clients, or in their case, to our treasury assets. And the long-term goal is really to either build something surrounding this. So, we'll collect the data and experience as we go along, and potentially build a decentralized treasury management solution, which could be done through smart contract, relayers, etc. And we've also been in touch with a couple of products who are actually already building such a platform. So I think the long-term goal here really is to see how we can allocate more of the treasury to yielding activities, but the strong condition to kind of do that is to really have a decentralized and trustless system to do that. So this like initial trial is really just to see what we could do and like what smart contracts we interact with at what frequency, and then we can use all these parameters which we learn over the next 6 months to either build our own system or use an existing solution to do that. And one of the products is Mimic, for example. They're building a treasury management solution. We've already had a chat with them as well. But yeah, that's a brief overview. If this piqued your interest, definitely check out the forum. There's a lot more details around that there. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask, of course, as well, both here as well as in the forum.
Just two kind of additional comments. One, as you're talking about, that trustless infrastructure, I do think it's worth pointing out that DXdao, of course, in my mind, is really pioneering this already. And everything we've done, DXdao has done with the buyback and using the relayer and doing all having that go through governance proposals, right? There's been like 200, orders through that. That's, I think, like the foundational model that can be applied to much more elaborate, sophisticated treasury management. So I think we're hoping to really use the experienced infrastructure that DXdao has already done, paired with some of the financial sophistication of other treasury managers. And then just second comment is, in addition to wanting to build, decentralized infrastructure for DAOs, in addition to wanting to get some yield off of the products, I think another thing that's very important for this proposal and also the treasury at large is how it can be used to support DXDAO's products, right? And so I'm thinking for this mostly of Swapr and how Swapr will maybe get some more additional volume, TVL, through the management of DXDAO's treasury and how that's deployed there. So I think there's a really symbiotic relationship between how we can build governance products, DAO infrastructure, DAO tooling, and then how those connect to the DeFi products, the swappers, the other products we have. And those kind of integration, I think, would really create a great ecosystem here. So yeah, I think this is a good step forward to move forward to that with that vision, but there's a bunch of things along the way to get us there, because there's a lot of infrastructure and tooling that needs to be built. But what I like about working with Karpatkey at this stage would be we kind of get to take a slow progression there and try to build this while we're still putting more of the treasury to work. So yeah, I believe they will be on the governance call next Wednesday to discuss this. So if there's anyone, please have a look and come back with some questions and comments, because I don't think this is something that should be taken lightly. This could be a very big move, and be very keen to hear the community's discussion on it.
Absolutely. And I'm also sharing in the chat, they also do a weekly recap. So I'm just shared the one of Gnosis DAO so people can see kind of how it works over there and maybe get some more insight on that.
Yeah, and for anyone listening to the audio recording, having some comments, of course, in the chats, chatting about kind of the fees and whatnot, I think good to go into this maybe on the governance call next week, or if anyone wants to step up and kind of have a chat here on stage, feel free to request. But otherwise, we could talk about that with Karpatkey next week on the governance call.
Yeah, and just quickly looking through those comments, I think the one from Spreek is probably the most interesting one, because I guess he's saying that there's the sharing and the downside, which is, yeah. I mean, that is a kind of typical structure for most asset managers, right? They get a management fee based off the AUM. But yeah, I think aligning incentives here is important.
Excellent. Last on the recap topic here is just the buyback specifically. I'm not sure, Dave, if you want to give a little color as to what's been going on with the buybacks, how they've been going, and what's going forward with them, just to kind of support the last couple topics.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, we've been keeping the buybacks going on Gnosis chain, of course. Given that they're based on trade volume, of course, the amount has decreased there slightly as well. I'm actually just checking. We still have a significant amount in the relayer, which is exactly 345 ETH in there, which is currently around $627,000 US. And so we still have plenty of ETH in the relayer to keep those going over the next weeks.
Yeah, and maybe a separate call to action I forgot for the governance. I made it on the call, I think it was a week and a half ago, and specifically to people that have been very active on these calls and all the buybacks discussion. As part of the last buyback extension, we did carve out and commit to devoting additional resources in a working group on looking at the DXD token. And I think that, again, is something big that we need to figure out the long-term structure for value accrual. So still working on like a post in the forum to kind of gather some thoughts, but it would be, really great to have as many people from the existing DXD holders involved, or other people from other communities that may have wisdom to share. But this is, something hopefully we'll start, in the next month or so. And I'm not sure the format the previous format that we had used with the Governance 2.0 working group was a meeting every couple weeks over a couple months that, gathered people. And so maybe something like that. But again, I think a key point is to not just have it be the full-time contributors that are thinking about it and kind of brainstorming on that, but involving as many people in the process of that. So be on the lookout for that. If you have anyone that's interested, is like really, cool, interested in tokenomics or anything, get them involved.
Who was it that hated the term tokenomics? Was that John? Someone doesn't like tokenomics.
I think everyone hates the word tokenomics.
Everyone, okay.
But it's like, I don't know, I think like language, you just use the language that people use. Kind of that, even if I don't like it. I don't think it sounds good either. It's really like a lazy word to combine, but I think it is something that actually exists. And so until someone comes up, you don't just have to come up with a better word. This is the key part. Like, you actually have to make people use it and accept it. And maybe I'm dating myself again here, but it's, from like Mean Girls, right? You can't just make fetch happen. So anyway.
I love that I'm dating myself here. And also love John's. I'm a tokenomicist.
Yeah, I think that's the worst, is when people identify it as a profession. Right. And so I guess even when I was saying there's someone who's into tokenomics, not like a tokenomics professor or a tokenomist.
Professor of tokenomics. Oh, awesome. Let's start our next topic here, which is the release of Swapr V12. Seeing more Tokenomicon comments in the chat here. I do believe we have Adam here that would like to chat a bit about the key features and kind of what's going on. I also believe it's live. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Keenan. There was a proposal by the community to take Swapr V12, which we as the maintainers were not so confident that's going to go up, but it went live. I believe it was 3 days ago. So the main features of Swapr V12 is that we decided to expand the eco router to Polygon, and we start with 3 networks there, or 3 dApps, AMMs. So that would be SushiSwap, Define, and also QuickSwap. So all of these three exchanges are forks of Uniswap V2, and we already had the architecture for implementing those in the eco router. So we decided to just add Polygon as the eco router without having to deploy the core contracts. Other than that, we also redesigned the swap box, and this was an awesome job by Leonardo, one of our front-end developers. It highlights a few changes of the swap box, is that it shows you the dollar value for your tokens that you're trading. So it's easier for you or the user to see the price impact of the price against the other exchanges around the ecosystem. And then there's a lot of other changes. Obviously, these are the 2 main highlights, but if you want to see everything that has changed, I'm just going to post the release notes here. Then you can see the entire changelog. And that's about it for Swapr Beta 12. Next, we're trying to work on Beta 13, which comes with a lot of other interesting integrations. So we're planning Curve integration. Obviously, it depends on the auto results and how fast we can iterate on that feedback loop. And probably Gnosis Protocol V2, which is CowSwap, as people know about it. Both integrations are currently in the PR list, pending QA, and then lots of testing, and then we have to deploy this somehow. But that's everything, and I would love to answer questions if there are any.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much for your time, Adam. Had to share the graphic alongside. Do love Swapr's design. But of course, take a look at the GitHub if you want a list of changes. Feel free to ask any questions here in the chat. Just because we're not seeing anyone typing. Adam, if you won't mind sticking around, if there's any open questions at the end as well, it'd be great to have you on here. And thanks again for stepping up.
Sure.
Well, speaking of Gnosis Protocol or cow swap, next topic we have is the continuation of cow rewards on Swapr. Me and Chris have kind of been chatting a bit with them on the forum. And Chris, I was wondering if you want to take that away, chat a bit about continuation.
Sure. So we are approaching, I think, week 10 of the cow campaigns. And so we had originally committed to 12 weeks, but how it lined up with the Swapr 4-week epochs, we basically are at like 10 weeks now. And so we have plans to continue for the next 2 weeks for a special cow campaign. And then after that, we've talked with the cow team about additional farming rewards for to be distributed on Swapr over the next I believe 12 weeks. So basically a continuation of their initial campaign. And yeah, I mean, I think cow was a great opportunity for Swapr. Obviously the market timing maybe for cow was probably one of the worst, considering it, when they launched, it wasn't, I guess we maybe were in bear market then, but it wasn't completely obvious. Whereas, a month later, people were definitely delaying token launches and things like that. So, but I think CowSwap, we were just talking about integrating CowSwap for Swapr. Like CowSwap is a product that's definitely going to be around. So they're interested in continuing to support the liquidity over the coming months. And we were talking actually a lot about how the group on the farmers on Swapr that are farming and kind of providing liquidity on both the cow WETH and the cow GNO pairs, or maybe a little bit more of the community enthusiast, people that are interested in building and supporting the protocol. At least I know a lot of people farming on Swapr are that, and so I think it's part of the reason why they're happy and okay with extending the cow rewards for another 12 weeks. I don't know if that proposal has passed from the cow. I know it was up in the cow forums earlier this week, but I think that probably won't go through, I think, until like June 19th or something. But we have we'll have a 2-week campaign to carry us over, I think, starting next Thursday there. Keen to know if that was it or anything else we could hit on.
Yeah, that's what I was going to touch on right at the end there, is that because this, of course, has to go through governance on the cow side, we will have a kind of interim 2-week campaign, I believe. Either way, there obviously won't be a break in the rewards to stake on for the cow pair, whether they be a lot or little. We'll be figuring that out sooner rather than later, but the pairs will remain the same. A bit more context on that in a minute here when I chat Swapr rewards for next week. Cool. Well, thank you very much, Chris. Just moving on to our next topic, actually a handful of topics, and half of it is a bit of a DX voice recap, but the topics are a bit more, need a bit more highlighting than just being in a recap, so I moved them to the bottom. So interpret this as a DX voice recap after I chat the Swapr and Carrot campaigns, of course. But on the side of Swapr, again, not an incredible amount of change in the pairs or allocations. Everything has been kind of in balance for the last little while. Looking to obviously include more partners in the Arbitrum Odyssey. Speaking of Arbitrum, of course, we are planning for that, planning some partner releases, planning our conditions as well. So a lot to look forward to, but not an incredible amount of change for this coming epoch. So keep an eye out for our regular pairs. It is worth noting that we do not have a full allocation of GNO and, of course, a full allocation of cow. And those need to go through governance on the Gnosis and cow side of things. So expect lowered rewards and or a shorter campaign duration for those pairs, solely so we can get the rewards back up to speed for the remainder of the campaigns. And yeah, I think it's kind of the main thing to highlight. It's a little bit more technical, but we have the funding proposal to move the remaining rewards for Swapr from mainnet, the DXdao treasury, and moving those onto Gnosis Chain and Arbitrum to kind of help facilitate these emissions. So lots going on there as well. Next Thursday, of course, being June 9th, I believe, is when the campaigns will start, and you can find context in all the pairs, what they'll be, what the allocations will be. I believe in our socials today, so keep an eye out in Discord and Twitter. Cool, and the next topic I wanted to share, if I can bring it up here, is Operation Decentralization and Twitter Spaces update. As we kind of chatted about at the beginning, Twitter Spaces went really, really well. I think we had the same amount of attendance that we would have had normally, in a variety of different attendees that we definitely didn't recognize. So definitely a success. And as I mentioned, we're going to be alternating between Discord and Twitter over the next little bit. But what exactly we're doing on Twitter is going to be, of course, very dependent on the show that we've been talking about, Operation Decentralization. So just trying to export a fun little teaser for that here in the chat, if it will let me. There we are. Yeah, so I've chatted a bit about Operation Decentralization before, but it's going to be DXdao's kind of formal podcast, chatting about decentralization, chatting about kind of broad stroke ecosystem topics, and having on a variety of different guests. We're already chatting with a handful of people. No one I can confirm or deny quite yet. Of course, I don't have the start date. But what I can share is kind of the interim branding, which should be cemented by, of course, the end of the week here. So you can see here what maybe one of the episode banners will look like, which we're quite in love with. The branding will kind of follow suit as is. We do have, of course, separate pages and separate tabs for guests and all sorts of interesting things. So keep your eyes open. Very, very excited for Operation Decentralization. I cannot promise that next week will be the first episode. I'd like to give it a little bit more of a heads up. But that is coming very, very soon. So get excited for that. Cool. And then the last thing I wanted to call attention to, just here at the end of the call, the end of the agenda, is a bit on ETHCC. I see we have a couple of relevant people here on stage. I just want to broadly chat about ETHCC, what kind of DXdao's plans are, what is going on. Also the fact that tickets were impossible. I don't know if Dave is here and wants to rant on stage about the tickets, but yeah, maybe Sky, if you wanted to quickly call attention to what kind of the plan is and what's going on, and then maybe have a variety of people just chatting about ETHCC.
Sure. Thanks, Keenan. So maybe we, instead of calling it ETHCC, we can call it Ethereum Week in Paris or something. And this is a week in July, the middle of July. There is the ETHCC event, which has been on running for a number of years. I think this is the 4th or 5th year, but maybe 5th year. And last year they moved it after COVID into the summer. It used to be earlier in the year, and now it's again in July. And so it's ETHCC is kind of the prime event that happens that week. But like we've seen in Amsterdam and Denver and a bunch of other places, it will likely be that week that many people from all around, primarily Europe region, but other parts of the world as well, come to Paris and gather around the Ethereum space. There are some events that are already coming out. There's a metaverse event earlier. And as we know, more and more events pop up as we get closer to that time. But I think it will be a very packed week of things to do in Paris. There was an issue. The ETHCC venue is still the same venue it's always been, or that it was last year. It's not very big. It was kind of already crowded last year. I think they're expanding the people. There's still some COVID restrictions. And so the amount of tickets has been very, very limited. Most communities have only gotten a couple tickets when they have 10 people that are hoping to attend. So I think that a lot of the crowd will show up to Paris and be interested in events and meetings. I think we'll get more events planned. Some people will be able to attend ETHCC, but a lot of, if you remember to last summer, a lot of the awesome conversations and things happen outside of the building, on the streets. There's lots of different events and happy hours and parties. And I think there will be more actual real structured events around topics. This is the decentralized ways that these week-long gatherings are happening. DXdao will have contributors there. I think there's a stipend proposal up in the forum, and we also would like to have some kind of gathering or participate in a gathering. We had something like a happy hour in Denver, which was really useful and a great efficient use of spend. And so we are talking to other aligned organizations that we could either team up with or potentially have our own event during that week. And it could be, one afternoon into evening. Potentially, we're looking at that Wednesday, which is the July 20th, and having an event focused maybe with a DAO theme or DAO and community and governance theme. We have an idea to partner up on this or do it on our own and potentially have kind of breakout sessions at the meetup or at the happy hour. So rather than having some speakers, we could have, one idea was to have kind of four different sections of the venue, and an hour into it, anyone interested in either DAOs or governance or validators or some other topic, we could break out into like smaller discussion groups and have open conversation around set topics, and we could publish those topics ahead of time so people are aware of them and could show up to the event with those topics in mind, rather than having anyone kind of just present to the crowd. And so there's lots of flexibility there. Typically in the summer, it's summer in Europe, it's warm, but most people like to be outside, especially at the end of the day. So one of the venues we're looking at has is mainly outdoors, has like a covering, so you're not directly in the sun, but I think there might be some indoor part as well. And so, yeah, we're hoping to have a DXdao connected event while in Paris. In terms of ETHCC tickets, there's a few DXdao contributors I think that have tickets, but even though they don't want, maybe there's a potential black market for tickets that could be explored. That would be interesting. And then other than that, I think keep an eye out for other events that are popping up as we get closer to that week. That's some overall background of that week in Paris.
Yeah, I'm not sure on black market tickets. I think they're quite stingy. I don't even think you can transfer a ticket if you bought it for like a friend or something, based on an email conversation I had, despite what the website says. So anyways, I was a bit frustrated there. And speaking of frustration, Dave, I would actually be very interested in you sharing your thoughts and kind of processes on the ticket situation, if you are still here, of course. Has been quite fun to kind of follow along these last couple of weeks.
Well, I don't really have much to share, to be honest. It was a bit disappointing. I mean, I think the unlock protocol page was like just not working. A lot of us had like 5 captures to fill out. Information didn't save. I tried paying by Stripe the first time, and apparently that like doesn't work at all, because you get the ticket reserved and then you have to wait like 2 minutes for the payment to be authorized. So honestly, I was quite disappointed overall with their ticketing system. It was the same last year, and looks like they didn't learn much from it. But yeah, and I mean, you can see all these tickets are issued on chain, right? And you can see people buying tickets 1 second after their release. So somehow people have some alpha as well, which how unlock protocol works, you're not able to even if you go on it at like 4 p.m. UTC when it releases, it's impossible to within 1 second buy the ticket because you have to fill in your details, you have to select payment methods and all of this stuff. So I'm just quite disappointed, but I might head out anyway for the ETHCC week, and I might try and sneak in for free, you know.
Yeah, instead of black market tickets, we should look at black market wristbands or something. Is this MEV GIF from Chris in the chat? Yeah, well, thank you very much, Dave. That is actually all of the topics I wanted to go over today, just a little bit closer to the end of the hour, so I have a little bit more time. I'm not sure if there's any topics, anything that anyone wants to speak to, any questions from any of the topics from today. Feel free to speak up in the chat or come on the stage. Anyone on the stage now have any topics, anything you want to run over? Otherwise, we can end a little bit early today.
Well, here we are planning and organizing and starting to make real a hackathon before DevCon in Bogota this year. So we are already talking with co-organizers. It's going to be a new format of hackathon that we are planning to do. And that's it. That's what we have for now. Not much. And I mean, not much to share publicly because we are still on the booking process and talking with co-organizers. Looking good. And hopefully we can talk more, Keenan, about this on next public call next Thursday.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to chatting more about it. I know there is a beautiful pitch deck put together by you guys and Wayne. So I had a chance to look through that and kind of give some comments. So very exciting stuff, and also excited to chat a bit more about the hackathon idea and how we can kind of move forward with that. So definitely on my mind, and also great opportunity to collaborate with the other squads, of course, as you mentioned, I think a day or two ago. Cool. Any thoughts on the hackathon? Anyone want to add anything? Otherwise, we can wrap her up here at the end of the call. I will say the little bouts of silence here at the end are very nice to listen to, the lo-fi beats. Cool. Well, thank you very much, everyone on stage, for speaking. It was a good call. Seeing some great call chatter in the chat here. So thank you, of course, to those of you participating, listening along, and those of you on the recording as well. We'll, of course, be not the same place, but same time next week. We'll be on Twitter. We'll be having our community call, possibly Operation Decentralization, but no promises. Looking to have a little bit more of a build up to that launch. So pay attention to the event tab here in Discord. It'll have the info on the community call shortly today. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.